After all the fuss, the Clippers are 3-1. Fred Katz here coming at you with another Clipper Blog Live after the Clippers' 107-101 victory over the Jazz. Blake Griffin, 31 points. Chris Paul, his first triple-double as a Clipper, first regular season one since 2009. He had one in the postseason in 2011. Appearances by not one, but two Aussies for the Jazz. And we have one for you on CBL, making his first ever appearance on Clipper Blog Live, Roscoe Whalen. Roscoe, how you feeling? You got the nerves going, the adrenaline going?
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's good to be here. It's serendipitous, I guess, to appear for my first time when the two Aussies are going up against the Clippers. So it's good. It's good to be here.
Well, the Clippers won tonight by 6 in a game where it was up and down the whole way in terms of their performance. But before we get to that, let's get some background on you, because I'm sure the usual viewers will want to know who exactly you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell me your Clipper background.
Okay, well, firstly, I can let the fans know I'm not a bandwagoner. I've been a Clippers fan for around a decade now, and it all started back in high school where a buddy was traveling to the States to watch an NBA game, and the only one on was a Clippers game against the Hornets back in 2004. So we decided we'd become fans. I chose Corey Maggette as my favorite player based on his name, and we went from there. And I remember it was tough goings being a basketball fan in Australia 10 years ago, let alone a Clippers fan, and I couldn't actually watch any of the games but followed them via box scores, and remembered using my last remaining internet credit to check the final Game 7 results against Phoenix in the second round of the playoffs that year. So it took me, I think, 3 years before I actually saw a Clippers game, but I've been smitten with them for a decade.
Well, the Corey Maggette pick is a really good pick. I loved Corey Maggette. Corey Maggette gets so much grief, man, but I feel like if Corey Maggette played 10 years later than he actually did, he would get more depth than he actually got when he played, because he got to the line like a madman. He got to the line like 9 times a game.
Unbelievable. He was just relentless with getting to the rim, and no one can ever forget that front flip dunk attempt in that dunk contest that year. I mean, that was forever.
Also, have you seen him on he does like the halftime and the postgame show? I can only watch the games when they're on Fox Prime Ticket. I can only watch the games on League Pass because I'm in New York. But I see him on the halftime show, and he does a good job. But he has to be, it's like his muscles protrude through his suit. He has to be the most ripped studio analyst I've ever seen in my entire life. It's insane.
How would they tailor make a suit for Corey Maggette? I just don't understand. Those things would be massive.
It's got to be weird looking, because it's got to be really, really slim in the torso and then just ginormous in the arms. The tailor must be so confused. Let's actually talk about basketball as opposed to Corey Maggette's ginormous biceps, which they are ginormous. That is a proper adjective. So Clippers win by 6. Good performances from Blake and from Paul. Inconsistent performance across the way. They were up 13 at the half. They went up 15 in the third quarter, and then they totally collapsed, only up 3 at the end of the quarter. What were your overall impressions of tonight's game?
Well, in many respects, I think it was a game of two halves. We got to see some of the Clippers that we've been begging to see in the first half of the game, and the second half was more of the same Clippers that we've seen this year. I thought the first half was better. I mean, making 3-point shots actually helps. So we saw Matt Barnes and JJ Redick hit 3-pointers on consecutive possessions in the first quarter, and I kind of pinched myself for a second because finally our wings were hitting some open shots. So in many respects, I thought the first half was good. We got out to run the floor a little bit more. DJ had some emphatic dunks, which always energizes the team and the fans. But in the second half, it was a different story, but unfortunately a story that we've become familiar with this year. The team got stagnant on offense. They didn't look as sharp as they did in the first half. The rebounding dropped away, and they could have put the Jazz away early in the third quarter, but they let them get back in the game.
Well, what did you think were the problems in that third quarter? Because it was, actually, before we get to that, I'm going to ask you. There were some changes made tonight. Who would you say? Blake played well. CP3 obviously played well in triple-double effort. Who do you think was your player of the game from tonight's game?
Well, I'd have to say it's Reggie Bullock. I mean, we've been hoping to see something from him for the last couple of years, and finally he came out and hit that corner three that we always were hoping for. He was 4 of 4 for the game. He hit threes from both corners, and there was one from the 45 as well. It was refreshing to finally see a 3-man hit a 3-pointer for us, and I thought it was a good adjustment, and it at least shows that there is room to move for the Clippers roster to improve that deficiency.
Yeah, and you know the Clippers went with a few different rotational changes. CDR didn't play at all tonight. He was 0 for 9 on the season in the first 3 games. Looked kind of spastic offensively in the first few games and was missing open shots from the perimeter. Barnes, started off today. His first 3-point attempt was an air ball. He's looked rough. He did a good job down the stretch in the fourth quarter, getting to the rim, and I thought today was his best defensive game as well, where he's really struggled defensively, especially in that first Oklahoma City game against Perry Jones. But it was nice to see Bullock get out there. I mean, it's weird because Bullock didn't get time in the preseason. He didn't get time last year. He didn't play summer league. And you're wondering, the Clippers are struggling with their threes, and Bullock's not getting into games. You're wondering, is he really that struggling that much? But he showed, he just kind of hung around the perimeter, stood in the same spot, and when he got his open shots, he hit his threes, and that's more productive than what we've seen from the Clippers small forwards so far.
The Clippers know what Bullock can do. He's not gonna light you up off the dribble. He's not explosive, but he can knock down shots. He's got a great form, and with his height, he's able to shoot over the top of defenders, which makes him a weapon on this Clippers team that's starved for 3-point shooting or making 3-point shots at this point.
Well, Bullock wasn't the only rotational change we saw today. We also saw Redick only get 15 minutes. And the sad part is this was probably Redick's best game of the 4-game season that we've seen so far. I mean, he made his first couple of threes, or maybe 2 of his first 3 threes the other night, and then he just missed the rest of the game. I think he finished 2 of 11 and maybe 2 from 10 from 3. Today he was, he made a couple early again and then kind of went cold. He looked weird late in his decision-making. There was a point where he went on a fast break, and he ended up turning it over because he didn't recognize the defense quickly enough. And he only got his 15 minutes. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, we can say it's only 1 game, it's only 2 games, it's only 3 games, it's only 4 games, but it's starting to look like J.J. Redick's got a bit of a problem maybe in his mindset. He's getting open looks, he's getting the shots, they're running him off of screens, he's getting those opportunities, but he's just not making the most of them. It almost feels like the Clippers have changed roles with Jamal Crawford playing the bulk of those 2 minutes, and now he's kind of like the guy off the bench. And unfortunately for someone like Redick, he got brought in at the end of the game in the fourth quarter to ice a couple of free throws, and he'd been sitting out for so long that he clanked the first one before making the second.
Yeah, well, Crawford is. I love watching Jamal Crawford play because I think there's probably not a player who's more fun to watch go for 35, but at times there's not a player who's more frustrating to watch go, 3 for 22. Crawford is interesting if you're going to ride Crawford. I mean, I think it would be silly to overreact and say that Redick is a 15-minute-a-game guy now. This was clearly a 1-game adjustment. Redick's going to go back to getting his normal minutes after this, and Redick is a tremendous shooter. He's tremendous at running off ball screen, or running off ball screens, I should say. Getting those flare screens and putting up threes at the wing, getting to the corners and getting open there. All these shots have been open. He looks fine. He just isn't really hitting shots. And I wrote, I'll have up in a column tomorrow, which I said that there's no real reason to worry, because if you were having this stretch in February, then we wouldn't be talking about it. It would be a non-talking point, and it would be a statistical blip. It's just, it looks a lot worse when it happens early in the season. Let's move on to Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, though, because they both had really strong statistical games. Chris Paul, first triple-double. Blake Griffin, I thought what was really interesting with Griffin in his 31-point night was that he really took over in the fourth quarter, and that's a sign that maybe things will be a little bit different this season, because Blake was always first quarter, and they got away from him. Tonight he was getting it in the fourth quarter. What did you see from their offense tonight in the fourth quarter that kind of made that different?
Well, it was good to see Blake, particularly in the second half, went back inside and started bullying his way to the rim. So we got to see a lot more of Blake on the post with those kind of strange jump half hook shots that he puts over his shoulder. He looks more confident all across the board, and I think by virtue of the fact that he's making those jump shots, he can now work his way back inside, and he's slowly piecing together that as an all-around game within one game. We've seen the jump shot earlier on in the first few games of the season that he was hitting, but we were hoping to see him go back inside as well, so that he doesn't depend on that jump shot too much. So it's nice to see him go back inside. Obviously, he's the greatest offensive threat we've got after Chris Paul and Jamal Crawford. Putting him on the block today against Trevor Booker, who just couldn't handle him inside in the fourth quarter, and he just went at him, and it worked.
Yeah, there's something else to note about Blake's performance as well, which it's a trend, and you mentioned it, that Blake kind of went more inside in the second half. That's something we've seen pretty much every game. In the first quarter tonight, they were running Blake off pin downs, and he was doing curls for 18-foot jumpers. And the first one, he got the opportunity. He turned down the shot even though he was open. The second one, he actually shot and was short, and he faded away. Blake is probably ready to shoot those shots, but if you have Blake Griffin, those probably aren't preferable shots. He wasn't really getting to the line in the first half, and that's the same thing we saw a couple of nights ago when Blake was just mid-range jumper, mid-range jumper, mid-range jumper, and he hit a couple of threes in that game. But with Blake, you don't want him to be so jumper heavy. The jumper is great to use as a threat. That's the reason the jumper is so good, because then you make the defense respect the jumper. It's all about gravity. If you can pull the defense out to you, then you can more easily push them back in when you're trying to go inside. And Blake is so good at that. He had some great post moves tonight. The reason that I think he might have been struggling a little bit on going inside earlier, and tonight was his best inside game, even though he only got to the line 4 times, was because Blake is so good at getting 2 feet in the paint off the ball in post-up situations, and then eventually receiving the ball when he's got 2 feet in the paint and going up. That's why when his moves don't look very pretty, he's still able to score, because he just has amazing positioning where it's already a layup and he doesn't even have to move. Tonight he was really good with that, and the Jazz have good bigs. Kanter's a big guy. Favors is a big guy, though he didn't play particularly well tonight. Gobert is a good defender, even though he's still scrawnier than Blake, but he's bigger and he's got that crazy wingspan. It was encouraging to see him kind of go back to last year's mentality with this year's skill set, and that's what's just going to make him horrifying as a player.
And you're right. As much as it's juicy to see him coming off of those pin downs and curling around for jump shots, it's not exactly what we need to see for the Clippers offense. He looks a lot better when he comes off of those pick and pop situations, because it's a lot more two-pronged. He can either roll to the basket or he can pull for that jump shot. But when he comes off those pin downs, it often looks like he fades away a little bit, and that's why his jumper is a little bit off on those, because he's leaning back on his jump shot.
Well, let's take a question. I'm not going to answer this one, Rossi. I'm going to let you do it. This is our buddy, friend of the show, Tom Reed, tweeted him. Tom Reed, a fellow Aussie and a wonderful basketball podcaster, and clearly there is no bias behind this question at all. Are you surprised that Joe Ingles did not dominate in his revenge game?
I am surprised, because we saw Darren Collison do something similar to the Clippers just yesterday, so it was a relief in many respects. Joe Ingles has already played more minutes this season in the regular season for the Jazz than he did with the Clippers. He just didn't get the chance that he probably deserved, but at the same time, he probably wouldn't have been the answer to small forward that the Clippers needed here. So he's a luxury piece, and if the Clippers could have kept him on the roster, I'm sure they would have, and Doc Rivers has said so much as that. In terms of dominating the Clippers tonight, well, he didn't get so much of an opportunity to do that either, but he is a nice piece for the Jazz off the bench and provides a different sort of look for their second unit, which is his ability to pass the ball. He's a good reader of defenses, and fortunately it didn't torch the Clippers tonight, but I think he will be a good piece this season.
You loved that question so much.
Very comfortable with the question. Thank you, Tom.
This is why we have you on here. You can give a real answer to that question. I would just make fun of Tom in that question.
It's a very niche question, very niche expertise.
Yeah, seriously. Let's take a couple more from a guest commenter. Can Reggie Bullock be the answer for the Clippers at small forward?
In some respects, yes. I think the small forward problem for the Clippers is two-pronged. One, offensively, we need to get some production from there, and with Matt Barnes struggling with his shot, then yes, Reggie Bullock can fill that void. He can stand in the corner and he can knock down threes. On the other end of the floor, I'm not convinced. There were periods tonight where we had Jordan Farmer, Jamal Crawford, Reggie Bullock, Spencer Hawes, and Hito on the floor at the same time. And just to me, it unsettles me a little bit defensively to see how that unit will go. Bullock tries defensively. I just don't think he's there yet as the answer to small forward. But I think he can work his way into the rotation, and when he's hot and when he's hitting threes like he did tonight, then yeah, you got to play him.
Yeah, I think Bullock off the ball on both sides still has a lot of development to do with his game. Like if you look at him tonight, pretty much all he did was stand in one of the corners, usually the right corner, and just wait for someone to get him the ball on a kick out or something, or maybe off a post up, and that was it. That was the only time that he was really going to get the ball, and he put up a three. I don't think he took it. Oh, he took one 2-pointer. He did a dribble in and took a Caron Butler style one dribble in from the 3-point line and put up a 21-foot 2-pointer, which was fine in this situation. I don't know why I just made fun of Caron Butler for no reason. But the thing with Bullock is that they used him differently tonight. They let him stand around. But last year they would bring him in and they would occasionally try him running off screens and running around. Didn't really work. He had trouble finding space, and he has trouble finding his man off the ball as well, running around screens and going through screens in that sense when he's guarding off the ball. So he has work to do in that sense. But you know what? If the Clippers small forwards and Barnes and CDR aren't going to hit their threes and they're not going to space the floor, Bullock's going to come out and he's going to be open with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin there. Both those guys command the defense to collapse in on them when they get into the paint, whether it's Chris Paul driving and coming off the screen or it's Blake Griffin posting up or pick and roll, whatever it might be. Like, those guys are going to command the defense to collapse in on them, and he's going to get open opportunities. So if he can hit open shots, then he's going to get playing time.
On the other end of the floor, I think a prime example was at one point he missed a rotation with Jamal Crawford and ended up with one of those Exum baskets right under the hoop, which we saw a couple of times with the defensive breakdowns with the Clippers. So I think he's quite green defensively, and he's still, his awareness is probably not as good as it could be. But yeah, as you say, offensively, I think if he's knocking down shots, then he's going to play.
What do you think of Exum, by the way? I really like him. That first step is super quick.
He's silky. I mean, he's 6'6" and 19 years old. Like, he may actually grow a couple of more inches when it's all said and done. His shot, it's not brilliant, but it does fall, and he's worked on the consistency of that. Remember, this is a guy that didn't play much competitive basketball at all for the last couple of years because he was at the Australian Institute of Sport. So he's only just now starting to play regular basketball, and even from the first preseason game to now, we've seen that development. Obviously, he's very young, and tonight we saw Chris Paul, the veteran, hounding the point guards Trey Burke and Dante Exum, and there'll be a steep learning curve, but I think he's in the right situation, and I think he'll prove those doubters wrong pretty quickly.
Yeah, and when he came into the draft, I think there was a lot of talk of, is he a point guard or is he a shooting guard? Because he's not really a shooter, and he's kind of dribble happy, and which one is he? I think he's totally a point guard. I mean, not that I don't think he's capable of playing shooting guard, but I think there are people who question if he can play point guard in the league. I mean, he made a play tonight, which you don't see a lot of 19-year-olds make, where he exploded. He exploded past his defender, went 2 dribbles, and then kicked out to Hayward on the left wing. And it was a perfect chest pass right to Hayward. And I don't even remember if Hayward made or missed the shot. But it was a recognition that you don't really see 19-year-old point guards have, let alone 19-year-old questionable point guards have. I really liked him at Summer League. I liked him in the grainy film that I watched of him before the draft, and I like him more now. I think he's going to be a really good player.
And he has a name that a superstar should have, Dante Exum. There's no doubt that he's successful with that name. I mean, that's awesome.
It is a great name. It's a super successful name. Well, let's take another question. Here's a good one. Are you surprised we've seen so much of Hawes playing without a rim protector? His defense is worse than I realized it was. Not I, the commenter. His defense is what I thought it was.
Spencer Hawes was not brought in for his defense. So, I mean, in terms of tonight, he only took the one shot and only played 15 minutes. And I guess if he's not really producing much on the offensive end, then there's not much point to have him on the court, because tonight we saw a few times that he just got worked underneath the basket and there was nothing he could do. I think I saw once or twice he looked at the referees with disdain, but it was merely for the fact that he couldn't actually guard the guy that just blown past him. In terms, I think his efforts there, he tries his best defensively, which is something. The defensive switches between the two bigs, whether it's DeAndre and Griffin with Hawes, they've been pretty good. But in terms of actually stopping his man from scoring a bucket under the basket, I don't think we expected him to be able to do it regularly. But I think tonight he kind of got exploited a fair bit.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be an issue. That's something that can be solved if once Ekpe Udoh potentially crashes the rotation. If he can get in, you can pair him with Hawes. Udoh's a really good rim protector. He's not going to give you much offensively, but Hawes can give you a ton offensively as a backup big man, and then you can have Udoh, who's a really quality defender and a very good rim protector, and they pair together okay on both sides of the ball, especially if you're just talking about a second unit. So that's something I think you're going to see as the season progresses, and I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal. I don't think Hawes is as bad of a defender as people say he is. Not that he's a great defender by any means, but he's got really good hands. He's able to occasionally swat away balls. Unfortunately, he's not able to get to positions where he can swat away balls very often, but when he finds himself in those positions, he can make his guy uncomfortable. It's the same skills that he has with his soft hands on catching balls, so he can put himself in, so he can quickly catch and shoot because he's got really good hands in gathering, and same ones that allow him to throw all those nifty big man passes that he's so good at. It's a pretty similar skill set. He's really good at that skill. He's not a great pick and roll defender, and he's not a rim protector, even though he's actually capable of blocking a shot every once in a while and averaged a decent amount of block shots a game last year. But he's not a rim protector. But if you pair him with Hawes, if you pair him with Udoh, then I think you can end up doing a good job. Let's take one more question from Alfredo Rodriguez. Why do we believe so much in regression to the mean? We tried that with Jared Dudley and it failed. Is it time to stop believing in it? I think just because Jared Dudley had tendonitis and was out of shape, then pretty much all statistical analysis is probably the same. I'll say that. JJ Redick has been a really good shooter his entire life. He hasn't been a really good one for like a week. He'll probably be a really good shooter again relatively soon. 4 games is not enough to make you say, oh no. Back me up here.
Oh, I agree entirely. He's been a great shooter his whole career. I think it's just a blip. It's just a few games, and he'll come back and he'll have a game where he starts hitting them again. I mean, it's not like he's ice cold. He's hit a couple of threes, so it's still there. It's not like it's gone altogether. I think it's a matter of time, and I for whatever reason it is, it seems like the Clippers as a whole are just struggling to get into a real groove. So I think it's just because Redick's number one skill is knocking down a J, and it's the most obvious thing that's missing from the Clippers team right now. That's why we probably notice it, but I think most of the players are probably lacking something that they had last year as well. So I think we're just waiting for that to round into shape.
Well, we're going to get ready to say goodbye. But before we go, Roscoe, I got to ask you, how did the first ClipperBlog Live experience go? Was it absolutely horrifying? And I know Roscoe does TV for a living, so this I imagine was a total piece of cake.
It was exciting. I was disappointed you didn't dress up Halloween style or anything like that for me, but it's been good. It's been enjoyable. I hope I can come back.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was not going to wear a gray rig or a dress this time. That's a one time a year thing.
Just a hoodie tonight for me then.
Exactly. Just wait till next time. We'll be good. That'll do it for us tonight. Clippers pull out another nail biter, this time against the Jazz, 107-101. We're back with you Wednesday night, the first big game of the year. Clippers head north to the Oracle to play the Warriors, who've looked tremendous under new coach Steve Kerr. That game's scheduled for 7:30 Pacific time. It's on ESPN. For the rookie, Roscoe Whalen, I'm Fred Katz. See you Wednesday.